We all know the challenges of navigating dementia and Alzheimer's, and sometimes finding those moments of connection just feels impossible. But what if I told you there's a simple way to spark joy and engage your loved one through the power of games? Memory Lane Games is an app that uses carefully curated games to stimulate memory and conversation, creating moments of calm and reassurance. Join me as we explore how these games can help you reconnect and create positive experiences for both you and your loved one. We'll talk about the practical ways these games can be used and why they are so effective. Welcome to Fading Memories, your source for all things dementia caregiving. I'm your host, Jen Fink, and I have had 3 generations of loved ones with dementia, and I'm here to share the knowledge I've gained with you. Welcome back, Fading Memories listeners. It's Jen Fink, your host and your caregiver best friend. With me today is Bruce Elliott. He is the founder and creator of Memory Lane Games. It is an app that helps you connect and engage with your loved one using sort of reminiscence therapy, but mostly it's just a little bit fun. So thanks for joining me, Bruce.
Jennifer, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. A few years ago, we were sitting in a pub talking about our mums, and now we've got apps that are supporting caregivers in 100 countries every month in dementia. And this journey we've been on has been so much fun and so interesting, but also a bit crazy.
But your mom doesn't have dementia, does she?
No, she doesn't, but my co-founder's mom does. And so when we were sitting in the pub talking about what they both had in common, it was a love of old family photos. And I thought, I wonder if we can turn those photos into games. And my friend said, actually, we're turning memories into games. And we started Memory Lane Games right after that.
And just so you guys know, Bruce is from the Isle of Man, which he says between England and Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. My memory is okay this morning.
There you go. I'm originally from Calgary in Canada, and that's where my mom still is with my sisters. But I've been living in the UK for 20 years and haven't picked up the accent yet. But just earlier in January, I got a call one day from Google who said, hey, would you mind if we featured your dementia app in a global ad campaign? And I said, okay, we're just a tiny little company, but yeah, sure, that'd be great. So they sent in a film crew to this beautiful little island that we live in and filmed some wonderful things about our backstory and just to show our evolution and where we came from. And I think it'd be wonderful to share with your audience. It really sets the stage of who we are and what we're all about.
So this is the video that Google made for you guys.
Yes, and they launched it just 2 days ago as part of a worldwide campaign, and it's already had 2,500 views.
Awesome. Okay, so here we go.
We launched our app from the Isle of Man, a small island between England and Ireland. A few years ago, my friend Peter and I are sitting in our local pub, talking about our mums. We talked about what they had in common, and of course it was a love of old family photos. I thought, I wonder if we can turn those photos into games. And Peter said, actually, we're turning memories into games, and we started Memory Lane Games the next day. So we designed simple quiz-style games that are dementia-friendly. Beautiful photos that really evoke positive memories and simple multiple-choice questions. If you give an answer wrong, it just gently disappears. It doesn't tell you did anything wrong, and that is errorless learning. So our first game was on Sheffield, where Peter's mom was from, and our next game was on Vancouver, where my mom grew up.
Was there something we had to fix on the Vancouver game?
Oh, I've got a couple of suggestions for you to add.
Good.
They loved them, which is great, but we realized quickly we're helping moms all over the world. So we started making more, and it blew up. What we found after running a clinical trial with our friends from the hospice in the Isle of Man,
Can I join you?
is that 92% of caregivers were more relaxed while playing with someone with dementia. And 58% of the people with dementia were communicating more.
Because who was that in the photo?
How was it graduate? So yes. database best.
When we started, we didn't have much of a marketing budget. And our traction really started to grow in surprising places, like the Philippines, like India. We've had 100,000 downloads in 134 countries. That was possible with Google Play. Our next big thing is leveraging Gen AI, using Google Gemini to create hyper-personalized content for every individual anywhere in the world.
And they're good questions about which models know for intelligence and complex complication.
You know, two blokes in their late 50s sitting in a pub talking about their moms, and look what can happen. We think it's wonderful. Small team from the Isle of Man can create something that is making such a big difference in people's lives all over the world.
What's a wrap?
That must have been a fun experience having that filmed and creating that little short film there.
And you know, it's what people laugh is it's the same story I tell all the time because it's true. It's sitting in the pub and my mom making the Vancouver game, and it's our friends at the hospice proposed that we could run a clinical trial on our app. And we said we're just making games for our moms, but that sounds good. So we ran the clinical trial. And the next thing you know, we were invited in 2023 to Arizona to be part of the Mayo Clinic and Arizona State University MedTech Accelerator. There were 9 startups from around the world, all with really important developments in medtech, and somehow we won it.
Wow.
They called us the surprise March Madness underdogs of the accelerator. But we didn't mind. But they said they'd never seen anything this simple but this scalable, and that's why they've been big fans of ours ever since.
Yeah, not to be disparaging, but when I think of med tech, I think of like big, huge advancements, and
I know. So do we. But for us, it's we just took a different approach that if we can get people talking, that has tremendous therapeutic benefits. And we found that the games that we share are able to make people feel comfortable. So your mom would be just feeling comfortable playing a familiar multiple choice game, but it's on a place she's familiar with all over the world, in every city in America, on hobbies that she had, her favorite bands, her style of cooking that she loves. We have games on all of those. We've got 3,500 games in the app. And so there's a comfort. And then once the comfort comes the conversations. And it's able to redirect attention. It's able to really inspire that trigger a positive memory, but go one step further to starting a wonderful conversation.
yeah, I can see that when I played around with the app. Some of the answers were like very wrong. Some of the options, and I was like, I can see this sparking a conversation with my mom, who you may not remember has been gone for 5 years. And it would have been nice, especially in the memory care. I might have been able to play it with some of her other friends, and that would have maybe sparked some other conversations. But just playing it through a few times with some of the different categories, I could see how it would spark conversation. So you want to describe kind of how the app works? I mean, we've described it a little bit, but let's go into a little more detail.
Sure. So Memory Lane Games is the name of the app, and it's available in both the Apple and Google Play app stores. And so it's easily downloaded onto any smartphone or tablet. And what it comes with is beautiful, rich, evocative photo quiz games. But again, on your familiar places, familiar hobbies, familiar bands, familiar foods. Cats and dogs, of course, is our most popular game in the world. But you start playing those games and interacting, and it's structured cognitive stimulation because you have emotional stimulation with the photos. You have cognitive stimulations with the quiz. You've got fine motor skills of touching the answers. And you wrap all that up into a daily routine, and people often play 20 minutes a day. And that can have significant positive outcomes on quality of life. And really, you mentioned it before, joy. And I think that's something that we're all looking for more of in our caregiving journeys. And we see people. We had one fellow the other day we were introduced to. His name was Colin. This was in the UK. We were at a memory cafe, and his caregivers having a cup of coffee on the side. And Colin's introduced to us as someone who's pretty much nonverbal, but we think he'll like this activity. Right. So Colin sits down beside us, and he grabs the iPad and starts flicking through, and he finds our 1960s Finish the Lyrics again, very popular around the world. And he's flicking through and he's humming, and he gets to this question on Elvis, and then he gets to a question on Roy Orbison. And he looks over and says, Roy Orbison's a way better singer than Elvis. We're going, oh my God. He said, but Elvis had a better manager. I'm going, you're absolutely right, Colin. Going, oh my gosh. And so at the end of the session, he's still playing with the games, really enjoying it. But his caregiver in the corner is crying. Gosh, is everything okay? But I've been looking after Colin for 3 months. I've never heard him complete a sentence.
That's amazing.
We found something he wanted to talk about. He loves Elvis, and he actually loves Roy Orbison.
Being a San Francisco Bay Area general resident for most of my life, I can kind of deal. I think I like Roy Orbison a little bit more too. They're a little. They were popular when I was born, so. Well, Roy Orbison lasts a little longer, but yeah. So that they're not my era, but I still do enjoy Roy Orbison. So yeah, that's amazing. I always found there was one gal in my mom's memory care who was Irish, and she basically spoke in mumble. I'm sure it was perfectly logical, coherent language in her head, but there was nothing to give you a clue as to what she was talking about. A lot of subtle body language. Like she always tried to hand you stuff, and one day one of the caregivers said to be careful. Sometimes she tried to hand you stuff from the bathroom. And I was like, oh, that's fun. Thanks for the warning. Like, thanks. And one day I was out in the courtyard with my mom. I was planting seedlings, and mostly randomly out loud, I was trying to figure out how many seedlings could go in each little well. And so I was doing like multiplication, and I think I said, like, what's 5 times 6? Or it was a not quite that basic multiplication table. And she walked by and just flung out the answer. And I was like, just shocked, because I had never heard a coherent word. She had to do the math. I had to think about it for a second, and I was like, okay, correct. It was just amazing. So I wish I had the opportunity to like meet her family, learn more about her. Like maybe she was a math teacher or mathematician of some sort. Maybe she just liked math, unlike me. I was just like, it would have just been so fun to learn. And I can see, like if you're using your iPad, you could use your phone too, but if you're using the iPad, you can stream it to a TV, and then a group of people could play, like in the memory care. That would have been fun. I would have done that with my mom on days like today when it's raining.
And what we've seen in nursing home groups that use our app is that they find that one resident helps another resident. So the activity coordinator will say, okay, so who grew up where? Someone says, I grew up in Chattanooga, or I grew up in Billings, Montana. And we had games on just about every place that you could imagine in America. And then they start playing those games, and then one resident will start helping out another one. And that's really, really fun. In the UK, we worked with one group that had a lot of Filipino staff working in their care home, and we have 250 games on the Philippines because we worked with their National Alzheimer's Association. So the Filipino staff loved sharing their culture with their residents as well, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, that would be fun. Were the residents able to answer the questions, or
Well, see, the nice part, it didn't matter.
Right.
So what's the name of this? Well, I don't know. And they would just guess. And if you get an answer wrong in our multiple choice quiz, the answers just gently disappear, as you saw in that video. It just goes away. No, it doesn't tell you if it did anything wrong. So it was a fun way to communicate, and there's no penalty for getting anything wrong.
So you said you did a clinical trial. What did that entail? Because I always think clinical trials is like medicinal. Obviously, yeah, that's not the case with you guys.
We took a different approach. My chief clinical officer had run 8 dementia trials for Big Pharma earlier in her career, and she's still a nurse that works in care homes in dementia. And she said, when I first presented this, she said, "Boys, you have no idea what you have here. This app can change lives, and we can validate that in clinical trials." And we're just making games for our mums, but that sounds good. So Helen designed a trial that took pairs of people living with dementia and their caregivers at home. So really quite unique. And so they would play our app 3 times a week, 20 minutes a day, and the outcomes were incredible. And so we ran this over 6 months, and that's where the stats of 92% of the caregivers were more relaxed, 67% of the caregivers were happier. 83% of the people with dementia were laughing more while playing. And the music to our ears was that 58% of the people with dementia were communicating more. And that's when we really realized that, wow, this can increase socialization. And doing the research on, social isolation is the number one modifiable risk factor for dementia in older age, just getting people talking. And we found a way to do that because we found Colin, he loved to talk about Roy Orbison. So finding that magic nugget to let people talk about something they're interested in, that's what our focus is.
Yeah, somebody who I took care of my mom the last 3 years of her life, and it was always exhausting because you had to kind of communicate for both of you. She still used English words, and it was legible is not the right word because that's visual, but they were easily understood words, but there was never context. It was always trying to figure out what was she trying to tell me, and I was trying to be respectful and so I could give an appropriate answer. So that's exhausting. And if you made like a confused face, it would piss her off. So you couldn't even inadvertently what is she saying? Like crinkle up your face. I'm like, huh? No, it was dangerous. And you had to be able to respond to whatever it was she was saying. It was just exhausting. And just coming up with things to talk about was just, it was a lot. So I can see how having this game it alleviates a lot of that just mental drain, and you could just have something a little fun. Like who wants to try to have fun that's so mentally taxing? That's not fun.
Well, I'll give you an example. We had someone we knew well, used to go and visit his mom every 2 weeks, and she had moderate dementia. She lived with his sister, so he would drive over the 45 minutes every 2 weeks, sit down with his mom. "How are you, Mom?" "Fine." "What'd you have for lunch today?" "Nothing." "Is there anything on TV?" "Nothing." Everything one word negative answers. And he does this every 2 weeks for years. And then one day he heard about our app. So he takes our app with him, and instead of engaging and having that what's on television conversation, he just opened the iPad to the town that she grew up in. And she stopped and said, "That's Manchester. That's where I grew up." He goes, "Yes, I know, Mom." She goes, "Oh, and you see in this picture, you see that tram stop? That's the stop I used to meet your dad at after the war. And we had to meet there because your uncle and your dad didn't get along." He said, "I'd never heard that story before." He said, "My mom was back in the room for 15 minutes, and he's been the wonderful champion of ours ever since."
Yeah, that had to have been a lot more rewarding than nothing. I don't know. We didn't have all
I
the
know.
common
That's
answers you
6-minute
get.
loop.
Yeah.
And that's what he found is that redirecting. He says it's like picking the needle up off the record player and putting it down at a different spot, and just things changed instantly.
I like that analogy. Now, my mom loved to sit around and shoot the breeze, and she would ask you, "What have you been up to lately?" And so I would answer her, and unknowingly, I was trying to do the right thing. So I would break up what I'd done that day. Usually went about 2 o'clock on a Monday. It was after a meeting, and so I gave her the rundown of what I did during the day. Oh, it was Monday, so I went to the gym and I did spin. Okay, what have you been up to lately? Well, I went to the gym, I went home, showered, and went to the Rotary meeting. Okay, third time. So then I would tell her what I had for lunch at the Rotary meeting, and then I would tell her who spoke, and then I would say, well, it's Monday, I came to visit you. And I would always throw in well, I went to Rotary and we had lunch, and the chef, pulled out some Indian food today. That was kind of fun. Did you have a good lunch? Oh, like, oh my Lord, lady. Like,
Yeah.
It's like it wasn't quite as bad as this guy you were talking about, but it was like, I figured, if I had told her, well, it's Monday, I went to the gym, she went home, showered, went to Rotary, we had some Indian food, Bruce talked about this cool app called Memory Lane Games, and I'm here to visit you. Like, that's the information dump. That would not have worked. So I would break it up so she could at least process it bits. But I've recently, or somewhat recently, learned that she probably would have retained the information if I answered the question the exact same way, which would have made me nuts. But, details. So it was always a challenge to find ways to connect. So we always went to places where she could watch kids. So people would say, well, what are you going to do with your mom today? I'm like, we're going to go watch children in the park. And sometimes people would be like, do I need to call the authorities? Oh, yeah, that's right. Because I'd always give it to them in kind of like a creepy, I would respond in a way that was kind of weird. But, even in the, that might be another category is like kids in the playground or something. What games kids play or something like that.
We have a game on Games Kids Play. What's this game called? Hopscotch.
Okay.
And what's this game? Cat's Cradle, and those kind of things. So we have an amazing array. So whatever you can think of, those kind of games. We have the same games. We have kids games from India that Indian families played when they were kids. Those kind of things are just it's wonderful that really the families know what will trigger a positive memory, and that's the magic. Can I show you one game? This is my mom she's 91. You saw her in the video. She used to love to do crosswords, and she can't do them anymore. And so we found a way for her to do crosswords. So you can see it's a crossword quiz. And if you get one of the answers right or wrong, of course it froze.
Technology is always so much fun.
There you go. I love it. So, that's nice. There, I'll just put in that's the wrong answer, and that's the right answer, and then it fills it in for you.
Oh, nice.
Just a lovely way of engaging in something different. My mom absolutely loves that. We have 40 of those games, and then you can just see that we have all of these different games, cats and dogs and everything else.
I think cats and dogs and ice cream are two of the categories I picked.
Well, and 1960 sitcoms is very popular, and classic westerns. So we've got games on all these places, and there's 3,000 games in the app, so you can always find something. Our speech and language therapists say this is like shopping for the person with dementias. They're flicking through, and they learn quickly to do this, and they find a game that they want to play. Oh, that's interesting. And that's all it takes. It's that simple, and then you're playing.
Fun. So the video, and you mentioned earlier that you guys are working with Google Gemini, which is their AI, was that large language model?
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? Because AI is interesting, and I'm interested to learn how it works with or is going to incorporate into your app or whatever you're working.
Well, we're so excited about this because imagine. So, what town did your mom grow up in?
Who? She grew up in tiny towns, so I'm sure they're not in your app. Let's
What's the
say,
name of it?
well, she grew up in Brentwood, California, which was teeny tiny back then, but her parents are from like the Santa Cruz area.
So we don't have a game on Brentwood in the app today, but with Gen AI, the Google Gemini platform, we're developing a system where you just type in any place in the world
Oh, neat.
and it will instantly create a 6-question multiple choice game with beautiful photos that are designed again to trigger a positive memory on anything. It's any band, any place, any. So this to us is hyper personalized because you know where your mom grew up and you knew what her hobby was and you knew which music the albums that were in the rack when you were a kid or an author or kind of books or what she liked to cook. And we can make games. If we don't have the game, we can just deliver one instantly on pretty much anything.
Oh my God, that's so fascinating because my mom lived in Brentwood when it was a tiny agricultural town that basically exploded in the 90s. And I believe they now have a population of 72,000.
What?
Still grow sweet white corn, which is exported globally. Cherries. I'm still in a cycling club, different cycling club now from when I lived there. And we always had to remind people of all the cherry farms have U-pick. So the people would come from the peninsula, so the outer area of San Francisco, and
Imagine if we had a picture of a cherry tree farm in Brentwood. You'll start telling the U-pick story.
yep.
And then your mom will tell another story. That's how it works. It's that simple.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. So you just got to be nice to the AI because you don't want it to be, your overlord when they take over.
Exactly. Well, we're working with empathetic AI. So it's warm, it's friendly, it's cuddly. That's what we're trying to do is we're not making complicated games. We just want things that are nice, warm, and simple.
So I bet you that afternoon in the pub when you were talking about your moms probably did not envision AI helping you create these games.
Not at all. We've been adopted by lots and lots of smart people who just love what we're doing and help because I'll give an example. We were working with the Texas Medical Center, their innovation group, in November, and they invited us down to Texas for a few weeks and to learn a bit more about the U.S. healthcare system. And one of the things they realized is we have 500 games on India because we work with their National Alzheimer's Association, 250 games on the Philippines. But we had very few games for African Americans. And so I thought, wow, we have to fix this. So I worked with the team at Texas Medical Center, and we have a game on Houston, which is easy. But one of the women took me out to meet her 99-year-old grandma who lives in a lower economic neighborhood in Houston. And so we made a game on that neighborhood. What's the name of this Baptist church? What was the name of this drive-in movie theater? What was the name of this music hall? And those are the memories that really triggered conversations. And so with AI, we can start to make games not just on a city, but the neighborhood someone grew up in. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, because now I'm thinking the town I grew up in is still bigger than Brentwood. It was smaller, now it's like they all have morphed into bigger cities. And they still have a drive-in theater. I know those are kind of a dying breed. We lived right across the street from the elementary school. There's like history that I've shared like with my daughter or my husband. The shopping center that our family 1-hour photo lab and portrait studio in when I was in middle school, so this was the late 70s, was an empty field, and there was like a trampled trail through the weeds because the high school was up the road just a bit. And then
Those are the stories that we hear from showing a picture of the Brentwood Shopping Center And then you would tell that, or your mom would tell that exact story about the path up to the high school, right? That we're not we're not the most clever people, but we just found a way to help people have more wonderful conversations, and we think that's really needed.
So how did this conversation in the pub happen?
So my good friend and I, he and I have been friends for 20 years. And so 5 years ago, he and I were up in our local pub in the Isle of Man. And we're just talking about our moms and what they had in common. And his mom was 90 with vascular dementia. My mom was 86, sharp as a tack at the time. And it was a love of old family photos. And I thought, I wonder if we can turn those photos into games. And as I mentioned, Peter said, no, actually, we're turning memories into games. And that's what we've been doing ever since.
So it was just living in you guys all along. It just took this little conversation to bring it out. That's really cool.
Well, they say in England, all the best ideas come from the pub, but we learned you have to write them down when you leave.
This is true. Yes, especially if you've been at the pub all afternoon. So your mom in the video claimed she had some additions to the Vancouver.
Yeah.
What did she add?
So the name of two mountains and the name of one of the big bridges in Vancouver. So a couple of those, because she played our game, she said, "Oh, that's not a great question. This would be a much better question." I thought, I just love it. My mom is at 91 is doing quality assurance on our games.
Oh, I love that. That's just, having had a family business and, how can you not like that story? That's amazing.
Thank you.
So is there any vision past the AI? Because that's what you're working on now. Probably not.
Well, you know what we're seeing is our games on a tablet or on a phone work really well in home care because they have more time to spend, and they also need some distraction time because they've got some important activities that they need to do. So, oh, Mrs. Smith, why don't you play that memory lane games? You really like that game on Brentwood. Why don't I set that up for you? And you play along while I blah, 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 that kind of thing. And those home care agencies are also able to show their clients that they're delivering personalized care because they say, where did your mom grow up? And did she like Elvis or Sinatra? Did she like gardening or cooking? Or did she like, NFL or what, NASCAR? What did she like? And we have games on all of those. And so by showing the families that their caregivers can play those specific games with your mom, it goes a long way.
Well, we're recording this on baseball's opening day, which is March 27th. So I'm assuming you have baseball and cricket.
We do. We have both. We have lots of both, especially cricket from India. We got games on the Boston Red Sox. We've got games on a really good game on the Red Sox. I love that picture.
Oh yeah, the old one. It's hard to find those cameras on Zoom.
I know. But Fenway Park is home to which Boston team? The Blue Sox, the Yellow Sox, the Green Sox, or the Red Sox? And people laugh at the answers. That's part of the joy is that we try and throw in some funny kind of answers that people really giggle when they read those.
Yeah.
Yellow Sox.
Yeah. And I noticed that when I was playing. I don't remember what I was playing though. And it was like Red Sox. That's cool. So you'll have to. Do you have one on the Oakland A's who are not anymore in Oakland? That's great grammar there, Jen.
Oh. Well, I can tell you we can make one with our AI.
It'd be a little confusing now because they're in Sacramento, but they're not Sacramento A's because they're moving to Vegas, which I do not understand. Baseball in the desert in the summer.
We were testing our AI, and when I was at the Texas Medical Center, one of the fellows said, my dad used to play for the 1967 UC Davis Golden Bears baseball team. So I typed that into our AI, and it came back with 6 questions and photos on that.
That's amazing.
And he said it even caught there was some controversy with that team. They should have won the national championship, but they didn't. And the AI caught that question about that. It was remarkable. So these things are happening faster and faster with AI, but we're we met with Google the other day, and they said what we like about you is we see a lot of AI startups that are have really complex solutions to very simple problems, and you've got a very simple solution to a very complex problem. We like that. And I thought, okay. I mean, hey, we're just making games for our moms, but thank you very much.
You want to talk a little bit about what the filming process was like? That's for my curiosity because photographer here.
Well, the miracle was that they found 2 days of sunshine on a little island in the middle of the Irish Sea between England and Ireland in January, which was yeah, it's usually rainy here. So they came in and they brought a film crew, the sound, everything, and they interviewed me for 2.5 hours, and that's where all of that they edited all of that down from 2.5 hours down to 3 minutes. So it's like little bits. I didn't say the whole thing from start to finish, but they were really surprised, and they really loved the story. The film crew loved the pub to our office, to the scenery down, and it's trying to fit in. They said we would have loved to put in more scenery shots of your beautiful island, but we had to keep it under 3 minutes. So, but Google launched it on their We Are Play campaign for impact apps that are improving lives locally and globally. That's what the campaign is for. And so 12 apps were selected last year. I think 12 will be selected this year. And some of those apps, their videos last year, they had between 3,500 and 35 million views.
Let's hope you're closer to the 35 million.
Yeah, me too. Wouldn't that be wonderful to help get this message out to people all over the world?
Oh, definitely. When you got the call from Google, did you think you were being punked?
Well, I almost fell off my chair.
I mean,
and they, so they called and said, can we do this? I said, sure. And then they set up a grilling process with 5 other people. So I had to go through that and go, okay. But I just told them exactly what I told you. And they said, we like it.
That's awesome. My husband is from Silicon Valley, so I've been at Google's campus. So it's like I can picture. I don't know if the people you talk to were from California because they've got offices everywhere, but that's what I'm picturing in my head.
Well, we're talking to some of their AI people in California, which is really, really interesting.
I'm sure.
And again, because people who work at Google are people too, right? And they have grandparents and parents who have Alzheimer's and dementia and cognitive decline, and they just think about this really simple solution that we have, and they help. That's what we find, because we're a very small team. There's only 6 of us. That we're just tiny little startup, and people just step up to help, like you, and to help us share the story, and it's just wonderful.
Well, the story is lovely, and then you add in the Google, and then that's such a simple tool that caregivers can use. I mean, what's not to like? You'd have to be. I don't know what I don't know what you'd have to be to not like this story.
Well, go into your app store. We have a 14-day free trial for everyone to play our games, and you get access to all 3,400 games in the free trial, so you can try everything. Search your hometown, search your mom's favorite hobby, search the music that she loved, or places all over the world that are familiar, because we've got games on just about every country. And that's what people experience with us.
That's awesome. And when do you think the AI version will roll out? Is that hard to predict?
Probably. Well, I'm an optimist, of course. I think so. This year, I think we'll have it out. And the wonderful thing about AI is it's moving so quickly. And I think it's wonderful, because these things are improving that empathy, being able to bring out that real empathetic touch was not there 6 months ago. You couldn't do that 6 months ago. And now you can. And then in another 6 months, I think it'll be spectacular. So just imagine what you can do with that. That we saw one group saying, look, Available 24/7 in multiple languages and more empathetic than a caregiver sometimes because it's 2 in the morning and it's not stressed and it just can have a nice warm conversation and then play a game that you're familiar with. Wouldn't that be cool?
Definitely. Well, I'm going to keep my eye out for that. And for the listeners, the app stores are linked, or the links in the show notes will go to memory games in each app store. Google one might be tricky, but I'll figure that one out.
You can put the link to the Google video. We've had 2,500 views of it in the last and it only went live 2 days ago. So we're really excited about that and just really proud of that story. And even my mom likes the cameo that she made in it. So good thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as a former portrait photographer, I can tell you older women don't always like images of themselves for understandable reasons, although I don't know. I think older people look pretty cool because
Me too.
there's stories in their bodies, their faces, and my paternal grandmother lived to 103. That's my goal, so I got to have that attitude because I'm never going to be able to afford plastic surgery. Plus, not too interested in that. This has been fantastic. I'm so glad I'm so glad Google contacted you and that they contacted you before you stumbled on me, and I'm able to share this with my audience.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the story of Memory Lane Games and our app that turns memories into games for people with dementia and their caregivers all over the world. We had games played in 100 countries last month, and then the U.S. is our biggest market by far, but people are playing our games everywhere, and we just love that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
My great pleasure. I'll come back again and tell you how our AI stuff is doing one day.
That'll be awesome.
Okay.